remember a few years ago when I really experienced a desire to grow in my ability to pray, I began to read books. And I read many books about prayer, many of them by great writers, people who really seemed to know what prayer was and had some useful tips and techniques. And I began to follow these for a while. But then I realized that all of the reading I was doing about prayer was simply helping me to think that everyone else was doing it better than I was, that everyone else had better techniques, better ideas, and were actually much closer to God. And I was left fumbling about, unable to implement their own ideas and their own techniques. So I went off the idea of reading about prayer and became aware that God is the teacher, and God will teach me to pray directly if I turn to God with that desire. And the desire that I have to pray is proof that God is already working in me. The desire that I have is planted in me by God. I'm already well on the way to praying. And there are often some misunderstandings that we need to get right about prayer. Most people think that prayer is about what we do. It's the time that we set, it's the techniques that we use, it's the intimacy that we have with God. We also expect our prayer to make us feel better. I call it the magic carpet idea of prayer. It's as if when we go to prayer, we expect, if we're giving this time to God and in prayer, we expect to feel better at the end of the time than we did at the beginning. It's as if we think of stepping on to a magic carpet, floating away to a beautiful, peaceful place for a while, and then having to come back to our difficult, tiresome, sinful reality. That may be Buddhist meditation, to empty our minds that we might pray and enter this peace. It may be Buddhist meditation. It's not Christian prayer. Because Christian prayer is about waking up to the fact that God is with us in the midst of whatever we are experiencing at this moment. In the midst of the difficulty and the stress, the worry, the anxiety, the pain, in the midst even of the sin, God is with us. It means, of course, that sometimes I might go to prayer feeling fine, and after a time of prayer I feel much worse. Perhaps that's because God in this prayer has woken me to the fact that I am acting or behaving in ways that are not a sign of relationship with God. That time of prayer makes me feel worse. At other times, in a time of prayer, I may grow to feel better. See, the goal of prayer is simply engagement with reality, the ultimate reality, who is God. And we can only do that through engagement with our own reality, which again is often difficult or full of struggle, worry, anxiety, pain, and sin. So prayer, the beginning of prayer really, is that I am still and silent in the time that I set, 2 minutes, 5, 10, maybe longer, and allow God to reveal my reality to me. Now, when that happens, it won't always feel great, but it's essential that I am where I really am so that I experience God in my reality and not in a faraway fantasy. This is a central point that we need to understand in our prayer. Whatever we're experiencing at the moment is no obstacle for God. Whatever sin we are in the midst of is no obstacle for God. But when we are still and silent, and all of this messy, painful reality comes to our consciousness, then we are ready for the God who loves reality, the God who is the ultimate reality, to work and to reveal himself in our present reality.